For our collaborative essay on space, gender and class in Ursula K. Le Guin's The Dispossessed, to be published by the Alimentopia project, Mariana Oliveira, Miguel Ramalhete Gomes and I have created the concept of social structural spaces to analyze power dynamics in food-related spaces depicted in Le Guin's novel. It is a concept inspired by the notion of architectural or tectonic joints, which are the junctions that connect different elements of a building and that have to be strong to prevent the building from collapsing. This basic system of supporting building construction was first used to illustrate the poetics of architecture by Kenneth Frampton in the late 1990s and has been expanded more recently by Petrus Sefrin. Frampton, who defines a structural joint as the fundamental nexus around which a building comes into being, that is to say, comes to be articulated as a present in itself, considers this architectural element as the presence of architecture itself. Sefrin adds that this is the key architectural element around which architecture as a thing is articulated. Its function is therefore to aggregate different elements. When, however, this function is not achieved, it disrupts and destroys the order, what makes it the perfect symbol for social spaces, such as food spaces. In architecture, space should somehow be an extension of the human body. The architect's aim should be to articulate the user's needs with geographical conditions and create this two-way relationship that, to be lasting and successful, should be almost organic in its adjustments. The same happens with spaces connected to food, which are always somehow hybrid. Converging the private and the social, they are spaces of communion between the many users. Like the tectonic structural joint in architecture that unites several elements of the construction, these spaces expose the user's dynamics. Hence our concept of social structural spaces. When analyzed, these spaces bring forward relevant considerations concerning social order, and in particular concerning gender dynamics and power distribution, since it is in geographic and social spaces like these that technologies of gender and class are inscribed. Space, food and gender are three distinct multi-layered entities that, when put together, lead to more complex interpretations of power dynamics. Both Doreen Macy and Caitlin Kirby have affirmed the intrinsic implications of space and gender relations. Teresa de Lauretis, elaborating on Foucault's theory of technology of sex, defends that gender, both as representation and as self-representation, is the product of various social technologies such as cinema and of institutionalized discourses, epistemologies and critical practices, as well as practices of daily life. Lastly, Julie Parsons explains how foodways, which refers to food and all rituals and social behaviors related to food, are ongoing emotional, socially constructed, embodied, situated performances infused with sedimented social and personal history. All three entities have in common the fact that they are validated, constrained, and facilitated by reference to wider institutional and cultural contexts that restrain individual choice and are incorporated into many layers of identity, as we like to call them. Space, foodways, and gender incorporate at the same time people's identity and cultural habitus, which are both aspects cultivated and inculcated over time. As hybrid entities, space, gender, and foodways embody complex signifiers that are inscribed in spaces and bodies, which reversely build and shape identities. When the three entities are combined as complementary lenses of analysis to investigate and identify social equalities or inequalities, we are able to consider specific questions. For instance, do people from all gender identities have access to the same spaces or not? If not, why not? Are they allowed to circulate in these spaces? Or, on the contrary, are they confined to a specific space? If so, why? Do people from all genders have access to food-related spaces, or is there a gender-specific food-related space, for instance the kitchen? And finally, what is their relation to food? Bodies, both individual and geographical, are the surface and the space molded by these layers or codes, regulating the tension that arises between them. As the body on a micro level is the physical and metaphorical space in which the individual layers of identity are described, the same could be said about specific social spaces on a macro level, as we can think of them as an architectonic body inscribed with multiple meanings that may be perceived as a cultural practice which promotes a system of hierarchies of gendered bodies. In our essay, we apply this theoretical framework to Le Guin's novel, but we think that it can also be applied to other texts as well. So have a look at our list of publications to find out more.